Good morning, I'm Taylor Wilson, and today is Thursday, July 24th, 2025. This is USA Today's The Excerpt. Today, breaking down Colombia's latest deal with the Trump administration, plus what tech executives are doing in the Army, and how a potential map redraw in Texas could kick off a coast-to-coast redistricting battle. Columbia University has struck another deal with the Trump administration. The Ivy League school in New York City announced it will pay a massive $200 million fine over 3 years to the government to settle allegations it violated federal civil rights laws and failed to protect members of its Jewish community from discrimination. It will also jointly appoint an independent monitor to update the federal government on its compliance with new policies and pay an additional $21 million fine to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The agreement marks the second major concession from the university in its negotiations with the government. The school previously agreed, among other things, to bolster campus law enforcement, appoint a new administrator to oversee its Middle Eastern Studies department, and retool its protest policies in an effort to play ball with the White House. The announcement also comes after the Trump administration pushed the University of Pennsylvania, another Ivy League school, to agree to a series of demands related to preventing transgender athletes from competing. Similarly, that deal was reached to restore massive amounts of federal money. A federal judge in Florida yesterday rejected a bid from President Trump's Justice Department to unseal grand jury testimony tied to a 2 decades old investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The Justice Department asked the federal court in the Southern District of Florida to release transcripts from grand jury investigations that took place in West Palm Beach in 2005 and 2007. But a judge ruled that she doesn't have the power to order the records' release. Meanwhile, Attorney General Pam Bondi told President Trump in May that he was named multiple times in the government's files on Epstein, according to reports from the Wall Street Journal and CNN. A White House official did not dispute Trump's name as mentioned in the Epstein files, telling USA Today that briefing binders Bondi prepared for MAGA influencers in February included the president's name. But the official rejected any suggestion that Trump engaged in wrongdoing in connection with Epstein. You can read more with a link in today's show notes. Several tech executives are joining the Army as reserve officers. I spoke with USA Today national security and world affairs reporter Sibel Mays-Osterman to learn more about their expected roles. Sibel, thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Taylor.
All right, so what has the Army announced about these tech executives in the military, and who are they?
The Army has announced that 4 tech executives are going to be directly commissioned in as officers in the Army Reserve. These include one executive who's from Palantir, one of them is from Meta, which used to be Facebook, one is from OpenAI, and the other is from Thinking Machines Lab, but he used to work with Palantir and one of the other companies as well.
And I mean, how unprecedented is this? Do we have any historical context?
It's not totally unprecedented for the Army to directly commission business people. It did happen in World War II. The most extreme example was an auto executive from Ford Motors who was commissioned in as a general, which is a higher rank. And outside experts are also frequently brought into the military under this title, highly qualified expert, which is unique to the Pentagon. But that being said, directly commissioning in tech executives and at this rank of lieutenant colonel, which takes around 17 years to achieve from the bottom up, is not something that is so common.
In terms of the Army perspective here, why does the Army say this is necessary? How is this part of the broader Army transformation initiative?
So the Army says that these executives are going to bring good insight and advice as they undertake this big shift that's called the Army Transformation Initiative. Now, this was ordered by Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, and he wants the Army to get rid of some equipment that he calls obsolete, like heavy ground vehicles, and get more of this newfangled technology like AI and drones, which are the area of expertise of these executives.
And in reporting this piece, Abel, did you hear from the tech execs themselves?
I did, yeah. I talked to one of the executives from Palantir, who was actually the one that first pitched the idea of joining to the Army and recruited the others. And he said that they won't actually be working on tech and AI, and they're going to be working, according to the Army, on totally separate things like recruitment is one category, human performance. This executive said that they need to stay away from those spaces, tech and AI, in order to avoid conflicts of interest.
And what concerns do critics have here, Isabel?
So, critics say that there's a lot of ethical issues with bringing these executives in. These companies that they're from already hold each hundreds of millions of dollars in defense contracts with the Army. And critics are concerned that the executives could either get inside information that would make it easier for them to win future contracts, or they'd be in a position where they could influence the Army to buy things in the future from their companies or feel like they need to.
All right. So, what's next for this work and this conversation going forward?
The executives, I've been told, are going to arrive in Fort Benning by the end of the month to start training. The Army says they're going to undergo the same training that anybody else would, and they're going to be subject to the same physical fitness requirements. In fact, I heard from one Army official that they're going to be teaching them which hands that they need to salute with to be officers.
All right. Interesting stuff. Folks can find the full version with a link in today's show notes. Sibel Mays Osterman covers national security and world affairs for USA Today. Thanks, Sibel.
Thanks so much.
Brian Koberger was sentenced to life in prison yesterday for the 2022 murders of 4 University of Idaho students, receiving the ruling after hours of emotional statements from family and friends of the victims. Loved ones of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Santa Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin honored the students in court and spoke about the anger and devastation they felt after the killings. Those killed were all aged 20 or 21 years old.
Do you feel anything at all? Or are you exactly what you always feared? Nothing. You didn't win. You just exposed yourself as the coward you are.
That was some of what Olivia Gonsalves, sister of Kaylee Gonsalves, had to say. You can read and hear more from victims' loved ones with a link in today's show notes. Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott has requested, at the White House's urging, that the legislature consider redrawing lines for a handful of Texas's 38 congressional districts, giving Republicans the chance to flip seats red in the upcoming 2026 midterm elections. I spoke with USA Today Congress reporter Savannah Kuchar for more and to hear how Democrats are pushing back. Savannah, thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having me. I always love talking about my home state.
Yeah, well, let's get into this redistricting proposal from Governor Greg Abbott and Texas Republicans. What does this actually entail?
What we're looking at is right now, Texas state lawmakers are at the start of a special session. And in that special session, they will evaluate quite a few things that the governor has specifically asked them to look at. And one of those things is a proposal to redraw the congressional map in Texas, which is pretty rare for kind of the middle of the decade. It's typically every 10 years after a census data comes out. But Governor Greg Abbott in Texas has asked lawmakers to take a look at the congressional maps, potentially redraw some of the boundaries and change up where districts are, which could affect elections as soon as next year's midterm elections.
Could this kick off a coast-to-coast redistricting battle nationwide? What really are the national implications here?
Obviously, this is happening right now in Texas, but it pretty quickly garnered reaction from, like you said, coast to coast. Democrats in states like California, as well as New York, are looking at how they can respond. In a sense, if Texas Republicans redraw the map to give themselves a boost in a handful of districts, maybe California, New York, some other blue states will do basically an equal and opposite reaction. And then, of course, that could set off other states such as Florida and New Hampshire. It would be possible to redraw there. Ohio has to redraw their maps before 2026 due to their state constitution. So it's kind of set off this interesting arms race of redistricting across the country.
Well, Savannah, as you said, Democrats are vowing to respond. Just more specifically, I mean, do Dems in Texas have any power to push back? And how is the party approaching this on a national level?
Democrats in Texas really don't have a whole lot of tools to respond. The main one that they have used in history before is a walkout. So fleeing the state, not being there in person would break a quorum and the state legislature couldn't move forward on agenda items. There are fees associated with that, so it will be curious to see if they do employ the strategy. But state Democrats have said they will do what they can to block this move. It'll be interesting to see how much they are able to move. At a national level, Democrats are responding in full, absolutely, or at least promising a tit for tat response of, if you do this, we will respond and try to cancel out what Texas Republicans are doing.
All right. And what has the president said about all this?
It did originate from the White House, and Trump's team has been pushing this idea and was asking Governor Greg Abbott to move forward on this. And so Trump wants Republicans to do this to bump their numbers in 2026 and help the House out. President Trump has said that, if they do redistricting in Texas, Republicans could maybe pick up as many as 5 districts, is what he said.
All right. Well, we know midterms are really just around the corner, just over a year out at this point. What's next for this conversation?
In the immediate future, state lawmakers in Texas are in that special session for 30 days. They're a few days in so far. So right now we're watching to see any maps to come out, how exactly Republicans want to redraw the map. We're waiting for specific map proposals to come out. And then, like you said, midterm elections are right around the corner next year. And I think the other interesting thing is, along with Democrats saying they will actively respond, they're also warning that this could backfire on Republicans. If they move Republican voters from one district to a blue district to flip that seat, the district that those voters left could be potential pickups for Democrats. So the interesting thing to watch next year and heading into the election will be, who does have the advantage? Did Republicans, if they changed the map, did they help themselves out, or did they kind of shoot themselves in the foot? That will be the interesting thing to watch.
Great insight for us as always. Savannah Kuchar covers Congress for USA Today. Thanks, Savannah.
Thank you, Taylor.
And before we close this episode, let's take a moment to remember Amelia Earhart on her birthday. The trailblazing aviator was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic in 1932. She also advocated for women's roles in aviation, broke barriers in the air and on the ground, and inspired generations. When she disappeared in 1937, she was setting out to be the first woman to complete a circumnavigation flight around the globe. And coming up later today, millions of Americans struggle with acute insomnia, an inability to fall or stay asleep for several days at a time. But what can you do about it?
I did all the things. I took Tylenol PM, which did not work. I did acupuncture, which were lovely, but did not work. I listened to a meditation tape that a friend gave me, did not work.
That's Jennifer Senior, staff writer at The Atlantic, sharing what she learned as she looked into her own experience with insomnia and what could be done to alleviate it. You can catch my conversation with her right here on this feed today, beginning at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And thanks for listening to The Excerpt. You can get the podcast wherever you get your audio. If you're on a smart speaker, just ask for The Excerpt. As always, you can email us at podcasts@usatoday.com. I'm Taylor Wilson. I'll be back tomorrow with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.